Okay, hello again, Joe. It's
Hello,
nice to see you.
Kimberly. Good to see you.
Yeah, still loving these, but okay, we're kind of on this. I want to understand the power of AI and vector search and some of the capabilities it brings me. And you started to tell me about one that I thought sounded really cool, and it was related to code. So remind me of that because I,
Yes,
I want to talk about that one.
yes. Okay. I've experienced this a bunch of times. I imagine you have as well. Certainly, from a consulting perspective, this will be familiar to a lot of people. Imagine you are a database administrator and you've been dropped into a new customer scenario, and they have, let's just be generous. We'll say it's one SQL Server instance, one database with thousands of modules in it, like thousands of stored procedures, functions, views that call views within views. You have the whole
Oh, I've
code
never
base in
seen
front of
that,
you.
Joe.
Not once, not once. But if it were to exist, well,
If
how
it were.
interesting and novel would that be? Yeah.
Right.
So imagine you're dropped into it.
Yeah.
This is the vector search code exploration
Okay.
scenario. And again, this is one like that I think will be interesting to test out in the wild as we go on. But
Yeah.
I don't going back in my history of this, how many times would you see a case where somebody has a helper function and they think this is my helper function and this is the canonical right helper function and this is how we calculate taxes. And then you notice, oh, that's odd. There's another helper function that does something similar and maybe it's the same exact
Helper
code
function
but
too.
different name. Yeah, or maybe it's like dividing in a different way or adding something else or doing a different reference
Right,
table.
right, right, right.
And all of a sudden you get sprawl, or maybe the function logic is embedded in the view and then some of it's in a stored procedure.
And
This
it's
is assuming
similar but not exactly the same.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
there's semantic similarity. Maybe people are using different terminology, like they're saying this is the quarterly tax handling, and somebody might say this is the accounting handling by quarter. And somebody uses different words that, again, semantic similarity, but they're not quite the same thing. And then the code itself is doing things in the same way. You know, T-SQL is so expressive, there's lots of different ways to get the same outcome.
Subqueries versus joins versus, yeah, so for sure.
Yeah, so what would happen if you, with chunking, actually embedded some of your code base? And that way you could say, okay, I want to do a code search against my actual code base and go before I go off and create my own accounting function. Let me see if something already exists. Or if you know that it already exists, you find it and you go, oh, but it exists in 10 places. All of a sudden, there's a refactoring opportunity there, or there's tough discussions to be had to say, hey, I notice you use different logic depending on who's running this report, which I would see this as even as a product manager where you'd have a fire drill of an analyst needs to know what's our total adoption count for something or the ARR for something. And all of a sudden you get numbers that are slightly different depending on who you're asking
Right.
because they're referencing their calculation, their function, their module, their stored procedure.
Yeah. Wow. So you would end up taking all of those modules, chunking to create embeddings, and then looking for the similarities within all of the embeddings. And then that would tell you kind of the list of procedures, views, views on views that you should end up tackling and investigating. God,
That's a potential use case. Now, by the way,
I
you
can't think
could
of any way you would do that now, like
you could
without
do it
like.
today with that's the thing, like, or if it's full text search, you could do keyword search. But keep in mind, then you are limited to those keywords. So
Exact
you're assuming people
matches.
don't, yeah. So are they, and then also, even if you're looking at the intelligence of, hey, what is the intent of this particular module? What is it trying to do in the aggregate? That's something that an embedding may have a more rich view of
And they
versus
can analyze like a join versus a subquery and say that this is basically doing the same thing but with different code as well.
I think if you looked at the overall, like, what does this represent in, like we talked about, the different dimensions in the space, how
Right.
similar is this thing to this
Right,
other
right,
thing?
right, right.
Now, this doesn't rule out using keyword search and using regular predicates. And
Sure.
oftentimes it's better with the two.
Yeah.
But what I think that this does, like even Claude Code, if you talk about like that as a search tool, it's doing standard keyword search. It's not using vector search on a lot of what it's doing. And so
Right.
oftentimes classic search still works.
Right.
But the thing is that if you're looking for overall intent and you've had, let's say, 20 years of different consultants coming in and doing
Right,
their
right,
own
right,
version
right.
of things.
Yeah,
It's a
you
great way to
often
look
have
at
a
things
big mess.
holistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's super cool. And again, it's another way that you can leverage search on existing data. It's not something that's new that you have
Yeah.
to add. It's literally something that you can leverage against your current environment, and you can really get some great knowledge out of it. And it's something that once you do your analysis, you could drop the embeddings if you want from a space perspective. You don't have to keep them around, but you might end up coming up with something else that you want to search on later. So you might want to keep them around if you have the space. So I mean, I can
Yeah.
see both
Well, even think
sides
of
to
the
that.
library aspect of that. So, I mean, I just mentioned one database and one SQL Server instance. Imagine if
Uh,
this is across your full
Across
code base.
databases, you could have the embedding
Yeah.
stored centrally and start seeing how different servers, which maybe have similar code, maybe are or are not doing things exactly the same. And that could be why. The only thing that's coming up in my head is Ross from Friends and the Weenus. Do you remember there was a report
Yes.
called the Weenus? Or was it Ross or was it
Wenness.
Chandler? Yeah. Anyway, it's like a green bar report. And I don't remember that story, but I see these visions where two people have reports from different but similar servers, and they're getting numbers that just don't seem to correlate,
Yeah,
and
it
they
happens
should
all the
correlate,
time.
right? And
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And this is a way that you could create a central server, a central library for embeddings, and then do your analysis there and come up with reasons why maybe something systemically has been wrong for 10 years, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, this actually then, and I know we kind of brought this up last time, the
Yeah.
agentic aspect, because again, it's changing so quickly that I really don't believe 2 years from now there'll be many humans directly doing this search. I think it's going to be our agents doing this search. So then the instruction is, hey, agent, I have a vector embedding database over here
Yeah.
that has our entire code base. Make sure you don't create anything new if there's already prior art on how we
Wow.
calculate quarterly earnings or how we report this to, if you're talking like oftentimes with product managers, we have these fire drills where you would have to go and have an analyst report, or
Yeah.
there'd be something called a vanity metric. Like, okay,
Yeah.
what's a good vanity metric? Well, and then people write the code all from scratch each time.
Right,
You could
right.
say, hey, agent, go check to make sure nobody's done this before. And the agent could go, okay, I found this. Now, again, keyword search can work oftentimes, but it's the semantic part, the actual, like, find me the moral equivalent to
Yeah.
XYZ pattern.
And it's interesting because I know we're saying an agent's going to do this, which I know some people might say, oh my God, I'm going to be out of a job. But I think the developers and the DBAs that can do this more efficiently and find that code and still have the ability in a lot of ways to tweak code, because
Yes.
I mean, the agents are going to get better, but I mean, if there were one perfect agent to everything already, there'd be only one, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
is
only
it?
2 weeks from now. But
Yeah,
I mean, in the meantime,
it's one of those things where the power is in being able to leverage the tools, to use the tools, to get the right information, and then to move forward with that information successfully. And I think knowing these things now is what's going to make somebody like a really powerful DBA, and developer, and even stakeholder, to know what the options are that we can build into the apps.
yeah,
Well, that
absolutely.
sounded marketing-ish, so I might as well talk about Pod March, our 50% off the bundle of AIVSE and AIVSP, which is Vector Search Essentials and Vector Search in Practice. An incredible bundle to get you as even a stakeholder to do a prototype, or a DBA just to know the direction that things are going. And again, prototyping, even for you, could be a lot of fun on some of these things, like what we just said, code.
Yeah.
And that could also help you find some inconsistencies that maybe you've been struggling with for years. So there are uses today, even without, adding a significant amount of text-based data to your database. I mean, I could even, this one's maybe not as easy, but like if you have pictures and images, looking at the similarities of those is something you can do with AI. Anyway, we could go on for hours, and we'll try to keep coming up with some really good use cases. But I think for today, that is such a good one for DBAs, but not just DBAs, developers.
Yeah.
I mean, finding
And they're
that
doing that
similar
today.
code
They're doing that today, but again, it's like
manually,
where are those embeddings being stored today? That's
and
the
not
tie-in.
finding all of them, right?
Yeah.
And now you can do this not just in a database, but across databases and across all of your databases with a central library, which is really cool. Joe, would there be a way? Oh, I'm going to ask you this in the next one. I have a
Okay.
question to see if there's a way to find something. Ooh, cliffhanger.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
everyone.